And what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Cheap Ludes, and I'm back with part 4 of our 5-part tier list series. Today, we're going to be ranking the best power forwards in NBA 2K22, my team. So, without further ado, let's get straight into the parameters here. Let's talk about the tiers. S tier, unquestionable best cards in the game. I haven't had anyone argue S tier at any point this year so far, so I feel like it's pretty clear who the best cards in the game are, and I'll explain why everybody's here. A tier, just a shade under S tier. There may be like one issue with the card. Maybe there's a play style that maybe the card doesn't fit with. So I wouldn't say it's like S tier overall. I do try to rank between current and next gen too, so maybe that has something to do with it as well. Either way, I will explain every single card in detail. B tier. These are the kind of mid tier options. Most of the community are going to use guys in the B tier at their power forward position or even center or small forward. Either way, I'll go ahead and talk about that regardless. So there's a actual big distinction between B tier guys and like C tier guys, which I think you don't really see in the other tiers. I would say that power forwards are the least balanced tier or least balanced position in 2K22, at least thus far. I feel like there isn't a huge distinction between, the top B tier guys and like the low A tier guys sometimes in some of the other tier lists, or even the low B tier and high C tier guys. It's like a personal preference thing for the most part. But I feel like with the power forward tier, like you can definitely see the difference for sure. D tier, I mean, you should probably upgrade, but there's some value there in certain modes and stuff like that. And F tier, I haven't had anyone argue an F tier selection as of yet. I don't think I ever have. It's usually pretty clear who's an F tier. There's never really too many cards in there. Or there's trash tier. It is what it is. Let's get started. Chris Boucher. C. This has been one of my favorite cards since the game came out, without a doubt. At least one of my favorite big men. He plays better at the center position, but he can still hold down the power forward. We're getting to the point of the year where there's like a weird point in time where like the traditional power forward doesn't get used as a power forward. Do you know what I mean? Like it's weird. It's always early on in 2K where like nobody ever uses like guys like Kevin Garnett or like Chris Boucher or like dudes who actually usually play the power forward position as actual power forwards because they want guys like that can stretch the floor and dribble and stuff like that. And I think Chris Boucher, if he comes out later on this year and has like better ball handle and stuff like that, he'll be an elite level power forward. But this card is super sick. He's still like my Ruby big man when I need to run a Ruby big man. I still run Chris Boucher because he's got a super green release and he's just overall really fun to use. Evo Dennis Rodman. D. I mean, he's a defensive rebounding specialist. Like, plays good defense. He rebounds the ball well. He's not going to bring you too much on the offensive end. You kind of know what you're getting when it comes to Dennis Rodman. At least a normal Dennis Rodman. You know what I mean? So I would put him in D tier. I mean, if you're just starting out and you have this card and he's evoed and stuff like that, I'm not saying it's like a detriment to your team. I mean, take your time, especially if you're playing offline. It's really not that big of a deal. But Chris Boucher is an upgrade above Dennis Rodman, at least in my opinion. NBA 75 Amari Stoudemire. B. Look, chances are if you have this Amari Stoudemire card, like chances are you have better power forwards. Like, let's be real here. Like, if you made it all the way through NBA 75, you probably at least have a comparable power forward. That being said, if you have this card, he's not bad at all. He's like mid to upper B tier. Like, I wish he was a little bit better, but it is what it is. Andre Karolinko. A. No question, A. And I would put this one ahead of this one in S tier because AK is usually super good. That gold blinders is actually very, very helpful on both current gen and next gen. So for that reason, I would say this one's still a little bit better than the non-masked version. To be honest, like not many of these cards, the mask doesn't really make a huge difference. But it kind of does in Andre Karolinko, just because he's not the greatest shooter on his own. Like, he has an easy-to-time release, and he's got okay shooting badges, but that gold blinders really helps him out and kind of puts him over the edge. So I would say his masked version is probably S tier, and his non-masked version is like high A tier. Anton Jameson. He's B. I wish, for whatever reason, 2K made him, I don't know what this is all about. I mean, it's more true to life. Like, what I'm about to say, like Anton Jameson, they made him into more of a kind kind of a rebounder and like a post player, which is, I guess, more accurate for some of his time in the league as opposed to being a sharpshooter. He didn't become a sharpshooter till a little bit later in his career, but like still just kind of weird. It's usually the opposite of what they do, so it's just interesting that they did that. That being said, Anton Jameson is very solid. He's not even remotely as close to as good as Andrei Karolinko, which, I feel like is pretty obvious, but he's a very solid power forward. I mean, if you're looking for a power forward for like 24K, like you could do a lot worse than Anton Jameson. I used him for a while. Like, he was very fun. I prefer Lamar Odom if I'm being candid, but he's solid. Current LeBron. C, not the best shooter. He can't play small forward. He can't shoot from the corners on current. Yeah, I'm using Chris Boucher over LeBron. It is what it is. Anthony Davis. Now, this kind of depends. Most people don't use Anthony Davis at the power forward. I've seen a couple people who run like D-Rob and then Anthony Davis next to him, which, by the way, if you have those two cards on your team, yeah, you're either buying MT or you spend too much money on this game, which is kind of both. But either way, Anthony Davis is S tier. He can do pretty much everything. He's not like quite as overpowered as the Opal one we saw last year, but he's still kind of an overpowered big man in this game. Kevin Love, D. He can rebound the ball and he has an okay jump shot. He's just so slow. He's got a decent player build too, but that's kind of his own thing. He's basically a 3 in rebounding big man, if that makes sense. Which, like, Chris Boucher to a certain extent can do everything Kevin Love does, just better. And LeBron's LeBron, so he's a little bit bigger, you know what I mean? Bojan Bogdanovic, C. Now, what he has over Kevin Love is he has the ability to handle the ball just slightly better. He has more speed, an easier to green jump shot, in my opinion, plus better shooting badges. And he's still big enough to hold it down. Look, I rank them within the tiers as well, and I think that Bojan's probably going to end up like over here somewhere, but C tier is appropriate. Brian Cook. I mean, it's very similar to kind of what Kevin Love brings you, so I'm going to put him in D tier. All right, current Kevin Durant. I would put him at the top of C tier for now. All offense, no defense. He barely has any badges that you could really upgrade. For some reason, 2K just doesn't let you upgrade. Like, the only thing you can upgrade on this card is Acrobat for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. It's because 2K wants to sell packs, obviously. They don't want you to grind the game and be able to, like, juice out this specific Kevin Durant. They want you to spend money and buy the pink diamond one. I get it. It is what it is. That being said, C tier is appropriate. I just want to badge out my Christian Laettner, dude. Is that, like, so much to ask? Chris Bosh. Bosh is still really good. I mean, you can argue him or Amari Stoudemire. I think Bosh is a little bit better than Stoudemire personally. And you can tell, you guys know what's up. I prefer like combo forwards, obviously. So I'm going to prefer Anton Jameson over like Bosh and Amari Stoudemire, but it's really personal preference. I would say all three of these are ranked kind of right next to each other. Chris Webber. Chris Webber is A tier. Whether he's ahead of Andrei Karolinko or behind him, that's a complete personal preference thing. I don't quite think he's S tier, just because he's a little bit on the small side. Like Andrei Karolinko and Anthony Davis both kind of do what Chris Webber does, but they're a little bit bigger and a little better at certain things. That being said, Chris Webber is super overpowered. He's just not worth his price. Clark Kellogg, he's pretty good for a Sapphire, I guess. I would put him in like D tier. He's okay. If you ever need a Sapphire big man that can like at least stretch the floor a little bit, I mean, he'll be okay, but that's about it. Larry Bird. I mean, he's still Larry Bird. I would throw him in A tier. Way too expensive, not worth the price, but I think he's like the lowest card in A tier. Like, I would take Chris Webber and Karolinko over him, but that's a personal preference thing, so I don't know. Tom Chambers. C. I mean, I don't think he's quite B tier level, just with the guys coming up that I can even see down here. But that one's a personal preference. Some people love this card, some people don't. I personally don't think he's that great, but Michael Porter Jr., I would put him in C tier. If he could play more defense, his combination of like height and shooting ability is really nice. I just wish he could attack the basket better, etc. When we get a more upgraded Michael Porter Jr. card, he'll be fire, though. Danny Manning. He's definitely the worst card in B tier, but he's in B tier. He's still solid. He's really good in the post, especially if you're on next gen. He's really solid. He's a good rebounder. He's fast. He can kind of handle the ball. He's just not the greatest shooter. That's it. Dario Saric. He's okay. I'd put him in like D tier. I would use Michael Porter Jr. and Bojan over him for sure. Serge Ibaka. I mean, it depends when it comes to him or Danny Manning, like what you really need on your team. Serge is more of a traditional 3-and-D big man. Danny Manning's a little bit more of a combo forward. Just kind of depends. Serge still deserves to be in B tier. He is getting a little outdated. Like, I wouldn't be shocked next time I do this to put him down in C tier with Chris Boucher, or even Chris Boucher down in D. I'll never do that. It just kind of depends. I would use Chris Boucher over Tom Chambers. Nah, probably not. Lauri Markkanen. He's like the worst card in C tier, but I think he's still better than the guys in D tier due to his size. That helps him. Zion Williamson. I would put him in B. I'm not the biggest fan of this card on next gen. He's not very good at all. He's pretty decent on current gen. Like he's high B tier, possibly low A tier on current gen, like mid B tier, possibly low B tier on next. So I'm going to put him right here for now. I do prefer Anton Jameson over him, though. That's just me. Well, no, I'll throw Zion ahead of him. Miles Bridges, actually the best card in B tier. Miles Bridges is so good. Like, I'm not even kidding. He's just small. That's the only issue with him. He plays better at the small forward. But other than that, he is an absolute monster. These moments cards are always so good at the beginning of the year. F. I don't know what you expected from me. Dennis Rodman. I think Rodman's B tier. Like, you guys know I love this Rodman card. He's got a horrendously slow jump shot, but at the same time, like, he plays such good defense. He grabs boards. Like, kind of everything's right there, dude. He's, like, really good. He has some issues. Like, he's not really the best dribbler. He's actually pretty terrible at handling the rock, if I'm being honest. His jump shot is super slow, but he stretches the floor and can get boards. Like, I like this card a lot. Dolph Schayes, yeah. Yeah, both Dolph Schayes get up there. This Dolph Schayes is definitely better than this one. I would rank the power forwards in S tier as such. Dolph number 1, Anthony Davis number 2, unmasked Dolph number 3, and then Andre Karolinko number 4. That's kind of how I would rank it. You could switch these two around, but I think these two are pretty locked in stone right here. Dolph is ridiculous, though. Donyell Marshall. He is like C tier, bottom C tier. Some people hate this card. I actually like it. I might be too high on him, but I feel like low C tier isn't really too high to be on anybody. You may prefer someone like Clark Kellogg or Brian Cook. I prefer Donyell Marshall. He's a combo forward. What do you expect from a cheap loots list? Derrick Jones Jr. C. Draymond. I would put him probably towards the bottom of B tier. He's okay. He's just a little outdated. I mean, he was the first domination prize. You know what I mean? Dunktober Dirk. He's not very good at all, but I would put him like B tier somewhere towards the end. Elton Brand, F, but he's better than Karl Malone. Elvin Hayes, F, but he's better than Karl Malone. Blake Griffin, C. I don't think he's really that good. George McGinnis is actually good enough to be in D tier. He's better than like Elvin Hayes, Elton Brand, and Karl Malone. Regular Giannis. I know there's going to be some people that want me to throw Giannis up in B tier, but I just can't bring myself to put a current card up in B tier. So he's like the best card in C tier. You know what? Giannis by himself, he's so annoying this year that I might even throw him in B tier. He's just that annoying. Jabari Parker. I mean, like after Derrick Jones Jr. in C tier. Oh, Jay Crowder, you already know. Jay Crowder is B tier. He is super small. Like Miles Bridges is just better Jay Crowder, basically. But they're still in the same tier, in my opinion. Jamal Mashburn. I think he's A tier, personally. I know people are not going to agree with that, but I think this card is incredible. One of the more underrated cards that we've gotten all year long. James Worthy. I would throw him in C tier as well. Like, if he could shoot a little bit better, I think he might be in B, but that's about it. Jeff Green deserves to be in C tier. He's solid enough, to be honest. Jermaine O'Neal. He's not the greatest card in the world, but he's actually really decent in the post, and he's great defensively, so I would put him in C tier. Jerry Lucas. I mean, he's not that much worse than Dirk. I would probably put him like right here. He's abysmal on the defensive end, but he's really, really solid as a pure shooter, and he's decent in the post on next gen. For that reason, I'd probably put him in B tier. I'm probably just going to move current Giannis up. Giannis is so overpowered this year, but Kevin Durant down here, I don't know. Dunktober, Josh Smith. Yeah, I mean, I would still throw him like higher in B tier. I'd probably use him over Chris Bosh personally. Anton Jameson, yeah, I'd probably use him over Jameson too. Josh Smith is really good. I think he's personally better than this Zion. He's definitely better for the money for sure. Julius Randle. If he was better defensively, I'd probably throw him up in B tier. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to throw him in B tier. I actually like this card. This is one of the more slept on cards in 2K this year, too. Oh, Juwan Howard is, yeah. I mean, he's bad, but he's like actually C tier. Like, I hate this card due to draft mode, but he's really not bad enough to even enter D tier. Bob Pettit. Jerry Lucas is better than Bob Pettit, I think, but like low B tier makes sense for Bob Pettit. He can still stretch the floor, like he can still rebound relatively well. He can still hold down in the post. He's not going to be bringing the ball up. He's not ball handling or anything like that. Relatively okay jump shot. You could argue he's better than Dirk, but they're like really similar, if we're being honest. Kenyon Martin, really great interior presence, and he can hit a jump shot. Like he can hit a 3-pointer. It's only like a 60, I think, but it's a really easy to time release. He's got gold blinders for the mid-range. Like it's good enough. This Blake Griffin, same thing. Like this one's definitely better than this one for sure. I'm almost tempted to throw this one in B tier. I don't know. It's just something about Blake Griffin this year. He just doesn't rock the same. Lamar Odom, yeah, Lamar's so tight. I want to put him at the top of B tier, but that's just personal preference. I'll actually throw him right next to Anton Jameson right here. I love this card. For my personal rankings, my man is in like the top of B tier, but I will put him right here. Belinka. I actually think Belinka's towards the top of C tier. He's not quite B tier, but if you're looking for a sniper, he's really good. He's a little bit more athletic than someone like Bob Pettit or Jerry Lucas, though they're a little bit better rebounding and defensively. So Pascal Siakam. I would throw Siakam like ahead of Jermaine O'Neal in C tier. Paul Silas. With shooting badges, he's like right behind Andre Karolinko. Without them, I'd probably put him like right here by Jamal Mashburn in A tier. Paul Silas is incredible for like the 5 people who have him. I've never ran into one. Phil Jackson, still better than Karl Malone. Rick Barry sucks so bad, I can't even put him in C tier. He's so horrendous. I don't care. Like, I will use Sapphire Robert Horry over him, I promise. To be honest, I'll use Sapphire Robert Horry over a lot of these people. Sapphire Robert Horry is nasty. I might even use him over KD. Diamond. Rui Hachimura, he's good. I'm not saying that correctly. C. Tim Duncan, I would probably put in C tier as well. Yeah, I would put Tim Duncan in C tier. I mean, he's good defensively. He can handle it on the block. Like on next gen, he's probably still top of C tier, possibly B tier because of how good paint mashing is on next gen. But trying to rank it between gens when the game is completely unbalanced on both ends is very difficult. Giannis is really the only one that I'm kind of like torn on because he is a really good current card. And there's always somebody that's like way too obsessed with current gen, or not current gen, but like current series like Giannis is. Like early on, I think I had this problem last year where I was like, look, this card has some like very clear limitations and like he has so many cold zones, dude. He can hit with a 66 3-pointer though, I will say that, but he has no shooting badges. Yeah, I mean, it depends on playstyle. I would say on current gen, he's probably B tier. On next gen, he's probably C, towards the middle of C, just because everybody can kind of play defense on next gen. So I'm going to put him at the top of C tier. I personally would use Blake Griffin over him. That's just me, and I might use a couple of these other guys over Giannis, but it is what it is. As always, it's been your boy Cheap Loots. Thanks to you for watching the video. I'm going to be dropping the center tier list maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Haven't really decided yet. And drop a like on this video, man. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Who should be higher? Who should be lower? Peace.